Welcome to another episode of the Palace Huddle Podcast. Here are your hosts, Rob Schwartz and Justin Onayemi, two Bears fans who decided talking into a microphone was better than shouting at their television.
What's up, Palace Huddlers? Huddle
up!
Not bad. Better than what the Bears put out today, so we'll get into that. But
that's a low bar, Rob.
Low bar. Episode 101. We don't do any players anymore. As always, I'm Rob Schwartz with Bear Goggles on. I only got one on apparently today. And then also with me remotely is Justin Onayemi. I think he was afraid I was going to yell too loud.
We're all in disarray. Don't worry. No, I'll explain why we're remote a little later. But we used to do a famous Bear with a certain jersey for every episode. We are at 101, which, wow, what a landmark. But here's what I'm thinking for 101. So, when you were a kid and you would buy those Scholastic book orders, I always wanted to buy joke books. And it was always 101 jokes about food or 101. And to me, the Bears look like 101 jokes about how to lose, about how to just not even look like you're giving full effort. And it was kind of a joke today. So 101 episode, a bit of a joke of a game that we're going to have to break down a little bit.
Yeah, I think also another analogy we can use for the 101 is, education is football 101. And I think these guys need to get back into the basics. I don't really understand. Look, I get it. They're banged up on that offensive line. At one point, I saw Jake Curhan playing and I didn't even notice
Darnell Wright
wasn't out there. Again, this was a really frustrating game. I gave up on them at halftime, and my family and I went to Topgolf, and I don't regret it for 1 minute. I mean, I had the game on a little bit, we were there, but just being able to spend time with family was way more important than watching this team lose the way that they lost. And I know it's not going to happen. But my whole thing now, and I know I'm on record of I don't think that he's ever going to get fired. But if I'm Ryan Poles, I'm sorry. There's too much talent on this team for them to be playing the way that they're playing. 9 fucking points, not a single gosh darn touchdown. I would have told Matt Eberflus to freaking find his own way home. I really would have. He would not have been allowed on my plane. I would have given the reins to Eric Washington, a coach who has been on, a winning team in Buffalo, whose defensive line has been doing better than what we're seeing. And I know the defense hasn't let up over 21 points until today for 13, 14 weeks. But if you can't manage the whole entire team, you can't be head coach.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree to an extent, but I definitely have to push back on something you said there. But the reason I'm home, we do not live very far from one another, so it's not a huge commute to get over to the studio. But watching this game just sucked the energy out of me to the point where even leaving the house to go, not too far did not seem like something I wanted to do. I think Matt Eberflus, who I did defend for them bringing back, even though I would have preferred they not. When they made the decision to bring him back, I saw why you could do it. Since then has removed that feeling in me. But to fire him now, which is almost what you're implying, I don't think really makes that much sense. But certainly Ryan Poles has to be wondering if he did make a mistake. And we've seen Ryan Poles in the past. If he makes a mistake, he can typically kind of figure it out and move on. The latest being Velus Jones. I could see Matt Eberflus being replaced at the end of this year. And I have a very exciting candidate that I'm excited if that were to happen it would be like a dream scenario, and maybe the long-term future can still look good, even though the current feels kind of bad. But I think it definitely, how we huddle up. I feel like as a fan base, or at least you and I, it's time to like huddle up and reevaluate expectations. We talked about how this wasn't like this should be the Super Bowl year. But then my picks, I had them with 10, 11 wins and should be in the playoffs. Let's tap the brakes. But I'm watching the game with my son, and he kind of says, like, he did not come in with as lofty expectations, but he said, I thought it would at least be fun to watch. And the offense looked so much out of sync. Every time they make a little bit of progress, and this goes all the way back to the Washington game, every time they make even the slightest bit of progress, they find a way to shoot themselves in the foot. And I don't know where Waldron ends and the inexperience of Caleb Williams. And as you mentioned today, he's doing it with a makeshift line, and it definitely looked it. You just wanted it to be improving, especially knowing the really, really challenging part of your schedule is still in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they play New England this upcoming week, and it's a must-win game now. It's a must-win game. Some people thought this was a must-win game, but
This is not a clause up. This is not a clause up, Rob. I thought this was a must-win game.
I mean, you're now 4-4, and to me, it's just you have to beat New England next week. I think I saw, and I'm not going to get the percentages right. I don't have my phone on me. I did save it, but this was a very important game for them, and it would have flipped the percentages of them making the playoffs. I believe had they won, the percentage of them making the playoffs was in the 70s. And now that they lost, that percentage drops down to, I believe it was the low 40s. Maybe it was even the high 30s.
Well, and think about it. As we were watching the beginning of this game, another thing that my son and I said to each other was just like how different this game would have felt if the end of the Washington game wasn't what it was.
Right.
And so to just see how they ended that game, see how they ended the first half of this game. I mean, to remind you, and it was right around when I guess you packed things up and went to Topgolf, but the Washington game, you had the lead with 25 seconds left, and they had to go 76 yards, and they did it.
Yep.
Coaching mistakes, with mental mistakes by players, with physical mistakes by players. It was a horrible way to end a game. And as you and Bob brilliantly discussed as Bob discussed with Ted Lasso, Eberflus had already at that point let these things happen too much. And so then to end the first half, they had to go 70 yards, which wasn't even what they were trying to do, in 20 seconds. And they do it. It's, again, just like, to me, in that less of a minute of game time, he might have lost his whole job.
100%. The back-to-back, just... You could almost excuse a little bit of the Washington game, right? You could almost excuse it a little bit, but then to see it happen again, it reminds me of, I believe it was back-to-back. It might have been one game in between when Mark Trestman was here and it was 50-point losses. Like they lost 2 in a row. Yes. That was the deciding factor, in my opinion, of that season, right? Like you knew for sure he was gone. No, because they never do.
He played out the string, but
look, I'm going to say it because I know there's going to be fans that are listening, and I know that they're going to appreciate that I'm going to say this. The underlying problem right now is the McCaskies. It really is. And the reason I say that is because we are seeing the same damn cycle. We talked about it all offseason. The same damn cycle of you get a new quarterback, you retain your coach, you don't align them instead of moving on. Look, Eberflus, hey, I appreciate what you did. You were a good bridge head coach to get us into the position that we're in right now, but we see a future that's a little bit different from where we are right now. We have to move on. If you would like to stay on as the defensive coordinator, maybe we'll consider that.
That's making the same mistake you're just talking about.
I'm just saying, like, that's all he seems to be able to be. I would have went out and got a guy, and I'm not going to name names right now because that'll be a different episode, but
you would have gotten Harbaugh.
Harbaugh would have been on my list.
He was your guy.
I would have went with Clint Kubiak. I would have given him that chance. There's a guy up in Detroit that we like.
Johnson passed up all jobs, and some people are saying it's because he wanted the Bears job that never opened up.
Yeah,
they might get lucky if that's still how he feels and it opens up, and Caleb Williams is able to learn an offense because he seems like he has the mental aptitude to do it, and you get a much better O-line with all these picks that you hopefully aren't trading away this week, because this is not a team that's a piece away with lots of key injuries. And
here's my thing. I'm a huge Ryan Poles supporter, and I feel like you've been on that same train, right? I like where the team is to a certain degree. I agree with you that we both said this was not a Super Bowl winning team. They weren't there yet. You shouldn't expect that from a rookie quarterback either. My thing is that there are two mistakes Ryan Poles has made. They're the two biggest mistakes of his tenure here in Chicago. I wrote an article about two of his roster missteps not that long ago. Now I think I'm going to have to write an article about his two biggest mistakes of his career. It's not Chase Claypool. It's not Bayless Jones. It's retaining Matt Eberflus. And it is not properly addressing this offensive line. I'm sorry. Like, the trenches are very important. And we have seen the amount of emphasis he has put on the defensive side of the ball. And outside of Darnell Wright, he's done jack shit on offense. I'm sorry. Ryan Bates is not the answer. Coleman Shelton, not the answer. Like, these are just makeshift Band-Aids that you put on the goddamn Titanic as it's starting to sink. Like, a Band-Aid's not going to keep that ship from going down. And we're seeing it right now. And look, Caleb Williams also deserves some heat too, because he is not progress is not linear. I keep saying that. Progress isn't linear. Stop worrying about what Jaden Daniels is doing. The things that you see Caleb Williams doing right now is very, very different. The armband, the calling of plays, the getting to the line of scrimmage, those types of things, and changing plays, calling plays, those are things that top guys in the NFL would do. Those are the Tom Brady's. Those are the Peyton Mannings. I'm not obviously putting in that mold yet, but I'm glad to see that that's what the development is looking like. My issue is I feel like the team is holding him back. And we saw the same thing with Justin Fields
so many times in Chicago history.
Yes.
He has a different level of skill, I feel like, than some we've seen before, and it flashes. I'm afraid of what he will allow himself to be subject to at times, where it is just like, dude, that play is over, let it go. He wants to make the remarkable play. And when things aren't clicking cohesively at all anywhere else, I think he tries to do it even more. And that's what I'm worried about. I mean, even to the last drive of the game, which I was barely trying to watch.
How were they even in there, though? Why? What are you playing
hurt? He might be hurt. I mean,
yeah. They said it's an ankle, and they said they think he's fine, and he didn't seem like he was in a lot of pain when he was at his press conference. But what are you in there for? What are any of you? What do you have Keenan Allen out there for? I'm sorry, like a 30-some-year-old wide receiver who
37. It's not Bayless.
No, I said 30-something.
I thought you said 37. I was like,
no. 30-something. I think he's 31, right? 30, 31.
That's 37 wide receiver years.
Who has already dealt with injuries and missed time. Why are you subjecting him to playing at that point? The game was over, and you knew it was over because you started playing like you were losing.
They played like it was over, but they played like it was over in the third quarter, to be honest. So the Bears open up in the second half after the defense did let them down at the end of the first half, but you get the ball first in the second half. I didn't think we were going to talk the game that much because it's hard to.
Sorry,
but here's the thing. It was like you were down 12. You had to come out hot, and they did absolutely not that. And then the defense gives up a drive that goes 8 minutes to Arizona. I'm sorry. But after that, the Bears came out with their second drive of the second half. There's only 5 minutes left in the third quarter. And you're already down at that point, 15. So you needed 2 touchdown drives, and one of them had to be a 2-point conversion. Like, the tempo needed to go, and they were just doing weak handoffs. There was no tempo. They're just squandering things to the point where now it's like you were having to go for 4th downs that you shouldn't have had to go for. You take a 16-yard sack on 4th down. Then they only had to go 3 yards to clinch the game. I mean, there were so many just like, what are we even out there doing?
I mean, to me, watching this game, and I was at Topgolf. We were waiting for our booths to be open. And I'm watching the game, and there's a gentleman in there who's wearing a Walter Payton jersey. And I'm getting pissed. Like, I'm furious. I was still giving it my energy at that time because we hadn't actually started golfing. And Caleb Williams goes down. In fact, I think it might have been that exact play where he took the 16-yard sack, right? I'm pretty sure it was that play. And my words were, dude, Caleb, just fucking stay down. Stay down. Just quit. Until your coaching staff is willing to do what you need them to do, quit. Go to the sideline, sit down, let Tyson Bagent take a crack at it. Because here's the thing, 90% of the team had already quit. The defense wasn't playing correctly.
So on that play, you've heard of sacks and half sacks. I mean, does each player who got to him get a 1/6 of a sack?
Yeah, there was 5-6 guys in his face.
They flashed a graphic that said 13 different players had a pressure on Willams today. And I'm thinking, we're going through it like, man, I mean, I know you do rotations on your D line, but every single one of them got one. I mean, that play alone, half the roster, half of their defensive roster was on top of him. But
they're doing what we talked about. Like, they are now, Jacksonville didn't do it.
Go after him.
Right? Jacksonville didn't do it, but and Indianapolis didn't do it as much. But like, after watching Houston go after him, like, that was the blueprint right there. And now you're seeing other teams do it. You saw it last week with Washington. You're seeing it this week now with Arizona. Until you can prove that you can stop it, every defense should be doing it. And if you're not doing it, then you're a bad defensive coordinator and you should be fired.
Well, and now you should know it's coming because you and Bob, brilliant analysts, but you're not offensive coordinators in the NFL.
No.
And you guys were talking about this, saying this is what you should expect from Arizona because the tape is out there, guys. Until you can handle it, that's what people are going to send. And it wasn't like Arizona is this top defense. They came into this game ranked like the 26th defense in the league. And they had their way with the Bears. Bears are making physical mistakes, mental mistakes, tactical mistakes. And you only muster 9 points in a stadium that was basically a home game. Yeah. As they panned the stands, it looked like mostly Bears fans.
That's why I thought
you got hailed on in the desert. I mean, that's how bad things were going for you.
But this is why I thought this was the game that Matt Eberflus was going to flip the script. Because he has not won a game on the road against a team that's 500 or better. And I thought, this is the day to do it because there are going to be so many Bears fans in Arizona. I know CHGO took over a bunch of that today. Like, they had a whole entire group of their people go. There was special events for fans that they could buy tickets and be a part of. I knew that Arizona was going to be taken over by Chicago Bears fans. It's also a transplant city. Right? A lot of people go there after they get to a point in their career. Was Florida all the time. Now Arizona is one of those other places. This should have been the game. And no one showed up. I shouldn't say no one. There were a select few guys that I saw consistently giving their all. We can talk about them on the second half here. I would like to take a break, but before we do, there's a couple things I want to talk about. One, you mentioned tempo. I mentioned the tempo at the beginning of the game on Twitter. I was like, oh, this is it, right? They came out. They were like quick to the line. They did it for like 2-3 plays, and then it just stopped. Like, why? Why? And I get that they shoot themselves in the foot consistently. That doesn't help. I don't know. I'm getting pissed.
I'll bring us out of the second half, but I want to say something about how the Bears came out of the second half. So That's how I'll bring it back.
Perfect. Before we go to break, before you enjoy these ads, please hit the subscribe button. We are 17 subscribers away from giving away our free jersey. 17 subscribers. Guess what? If you're so pissed off that you're done with the Bears, I'm okay with it. It doesn't have to be a Bears jersey. Any NFL jersey you want that's available, we will get it for you. That's not custom. Send it to you. All you got to do is subscribe. You'll be entered into the drawing to give it away. Thanks to Ted Lasso, we shaved 50 subscribers off of this giveaway. 2, if you are looking to bet on the NFL, fuck the Bears fucked us over today because we put bets on them. Please help the show by going to our sign-up page sponsored by BetStamp at signupexpert.com/huddle. You will find all the best odds, all the best sign-up offers. And yeah. Until then, let's enjoy these ads. We're going to recoup, come back, and hit it out of the park a lot better than the Chicago Bears.
Still paused.
There it goes.
And we are back. Hallis Huddle, episode 101. No joke. So we are coming into this, all jokes. We're coming into the second half of our episode. It'll be a little less than the first half, but coming out of the second half, Matt Eberflus was interviewed on the sideline, and to me, there was a high and there was a low. The high was him actually taking some accountability for the mistake of the end of the first half and putting that on himself. But the low was that everything else he said was so weak. It was just like, what'd you tell your team? And he's like, that the scoreboard's not good and we're all in this together and we're going to try to play better. Like, I mean, that's how it didn't come off energetic or informative. And you don't have to give that all to the media. But did the team look like they got any kind of message or came out with any kind of urgency? And I'm the kind of person, I often don't want to give as much credit to coaching, or I don't want to blame it as much, but it's starting to look really bad. I mean, you are the type of coach where you kind of say you want leaders within the team to kind of speak up, and that's why they have their council and talk, but then they're talking too much to the media, and you're kind of then trying to censor them on it looks like a house divided. And then you play how you play. I mean, granted, they come out and win today. Oh, they bounced back from adversity, but that's not at all what you saw. So it does kind of play into a different storyline. You know, you and Bob do news and noise. Definitely the question has to be, has he lost the locker room, or is he trending towards losing the locker room? And I don't know right now if I'd say that's news or noise. I was on record for saying, like, one of the things about Eberflus was he doesn't seem to lose his teams. Even that first year when they only won 3 games, like, that team played hard the whole time. And this is not starting to look like that. But this is year 3. This isn't year 1. This isn't year 2. This is year 3, and you have a much better roster on paper. And the results should show, and they're really not showing. So although he did finally take some kind of ownership, the rest of that interview was horrible, and the rest of the play was horrible. And now I don't know where that puts him at or puts this team at. Like you said, must win, coming back home to play New England.
Yeah, we saw Tyreek Stevenson get the 2 series benching, right? It felt like Terrell Smith actually started off the game pretty well.
Played very well, but he actually was a little banged up. So do you think Stevenson came back in, he was going to come back in that early anyway, or had to come back in?
I'm not sure, to be honest. Like, it could be either or, because they didn't specifically say that he was being benched. They just said he wasn't starting. That was the specific wording of literally every media person who, went out and reported on it. But they didn't feel, and Bob and I talked about this in the midweek episode, they didn't feel like his apology internally and his apology on social media was enough, apparently. Or they felt the pressure from the media and from the fans saying, look, you got to do something to hold this guy accountable for what happened, because you got to send a message to the team. And instead, it seems like the message was sent from the team to the coaches. Because there was stuff that was said throughout the week that wasn't kept in-house, that Eberflus literally said, we need to keep this in-house. He's okay with being critiqued, but he wants it done in-house. And, DJ Moore chuckled about it when he talked about it in his second interview, the follow-up, right? It just seems like, and again, I'm going to point the fingers at the McCaskies. And I know they have and to Ryan Poles and to Kevin Warren, because I get that, they have very little hold, or at least they try to make it seem that way. But we saw it with Hard Knocks, the way that they were editing out things and making sure things were scripted I applauded them for it, because I was able to watch things with my kids who are, 10, 12 years old, and I don't have to worry about language that I might need to explain to them. So I did applaud them for it in the moment, but I just wonder if there is too much hand-holding. We've talked about it before. They have not had an abrasive coach. I don't want to say Ditka. I would say Wanstead was a little bit abrasive. I haven't seen an abrasive coach since then. Since then, it's the toe the company line, guys who seem like yes men, guys who seem like players coaches. Lovie Smith, he did a great job owning that. No other coach has been able to do it. And I'm just to the point now, and this is where the reason why I was wanting Jim Harbaugh, right? I wanted that no nonsense, just hard-nosed. I don't care what you do on the field. Look, I made fun of Dan Campbell multiple times and said, this isn't my type of head coach. I don't understand it. But look, the players they're doing well with it up there in Detroit. Is it all Dan Campbell? Maybe Ben Johnson is playing a big part in that. I can't speak to that enough. But I just want to see this organization do things right. And I want to feel like Julian, your son, said, and I just want it to feel fun. And I don't. This is 2 weeks in a row now that this has completely killed my mood throughout the rest of the day.
So I said before, you and Bob did a good job breaking things down, but that neither of you are being paid by NFL teams to be, any type of tactician. No. And neither am I. But I'll tell you this, knowing far less than the players know about the way the game should be played, the longer I sat with the loss to Washington and look at how bad and how obvious Tyreek Stevenson's mistakes were, I still, as time went on, was more and more upset and disappointed in Eberflus. Not even
the fun of it.
No, before the timeout. Before the timeout.
I know, but we made fun of it, and I give you credit, right? That was your stick. That was your suggestion.
Producer behind the scenes. But
yes.
But that the play before yes. it, the other coach, Eberflus says, oh, it didn't matter. The other coach says that's the only reason we had a chance. Now Stevenson's not even in that position. The list is going on and on and on. And it's not just what's happening on Sunday. I have a sense it's a lot of the things that are going on during the week. And that's head coaching. That's coaching overall. You're not even looking like I don't know if we mentioned it enough, but the Washington game where you just deserve to lose in every way, you were coming off your bye. And in this game, you were playing with many different backups and things like that, but there was no flow or rhythm on offense or on defense today.
Yeah.
And that was supposed to be a game where you're basically deciding are we really going for it this year? Is this really, let's fight for our coach. I don't think it just has to be a fiery guy, but it has to be a person who doesn't make the types of mistakes that lost that game that you didn't even deserve to win in Washington. Because throughout that week, it was more and more obvious to me that still goes on Eberflus, even over Stevenson, when he made some of the most egregious mistakes a player could ever make.
Well, look, I'm going to go back to Ted Lasso on this. A line from that show, and it was brought up in our midweek episode, was regarding a player on their team, AFC Richmond, who was a 1 in a million type player. He was the bee's knees of football, right? And he sat down and had a conversation with this guy. His name's Jamie Tart, his character. And he says, look, I think sometimes you forget that even though you are 1 in a million, you're also 1 of 11, right? And I think that there are players on this team that do have that talent level. But if you can't harness that and help as a coach, and you can't help put these guys and keep them accountable and put them in a position. Look, I get they're professionals, but that doesn't, we heard Cole Kmet talk about this, and I think this is very important.
Who? Wait, who?
Yeah, I know, right?
I think I had the same number of targets as Cole Kmet today, I believe.
Probably. But we heard him talk
to him.
No, and again, game planning, but we heard him talk about this after the Washington game where if you're cheating yourself, right? Like this is the stuff that happens in the dark. Like instead of doing 6 reps that you're supposed to be, you're doing 4, right? Or maybe you're doing them half-assed. Like if you're not putting enough effort into what you're supposed to be doing as a professional and you're not being held accountable by every single person on that coaching staff, look, it happens in all employment. If there's an employee, I've worked with them, that they get away with stuff and they keep doing it over and over and over again, and there's no consequence for it, that's on the fucking employer, not the employee. You don't know if you're doing something wrong, or you know that you are, and you're able to take advantage of it until it's brought to your attention, or you're held accountable for it. So if you're going to continue to let that happen and not get rid of that player or get rid of that employee or punish that employee, and look, I know they did with Stevenson, but most of that accountability, like you said, has to be on them. And it doesn't seem like that's the case, and I think that's why he's losing the team. And maybe we're wrong. Maybe it's not as bad as it seems out in our world that we can see. Maybe in-house, behind the doors, it is better than what it looks like. I don't know, but it sure as hell, and I saw Adam Hogue talk about this, it sure as hell feels a lot like the Trustman era.
Today was the day to show that it's better within than we think.
Yep.
And they did the opposite. Now, could it have just been a bad day? I mean, it rained in a stadium that has a roof. You got rained and hailed on. So clearly it wasn't your day for a lot of reasons. I thought that was really stupid, by the way.
Yeah. If you know what's in the forecast, close the goddamn roof.
I don't know what that was. So that was troubling, but it
wasn't even real. It was like man-made. They had like machines up there.
It's so well timed too, like right when the Bears got the ball. Pivotal time, actually. They had just stripped Marvin Harrison. Could have had a turning point type of moment, but
there's no pivotal plays or pivotal players today. It's just pivotal weather.
We're done. We're done with that. How about this? We'll wrap up the show. And it's not a good thing necessarily. But you said next week, home against New England is a must win. I would agree. But if for whatever reason they either don't win or somehow eke out a win that they don't look good, what types of storylines are we talking big picture, Rob, that are going to start coming up? Why don't we each toss out one, and maybe that's how we wrap up the show. What might be coming.
We're going to talk 2025 NFL draft prospects because I love that part of it. That's probably my favorite time of the offseason is diving into players, coming up with my own rankings, and seeing how I can do from a scout perspective without actually having the resources and tools that actual scouting departments have.
Right. They clearly always have more data points than we'll ever have, but
100%.
You do love it, and I would say you're quite good at it. Now, this is season 3 that we've done the House Huddle, and I will say this is probably the latest into a season that we've even mentioned this kind of stuff. It's week 9, and this is the first time we even said, hey, what's the mock offseason schedule looking like? But another one, obviously, we touched on this already, would be if this doesn't start looking a lot better soon and you start performing way better against your division than what you're showing right now, Eberflus's seat is just going to get hotter and hotter and hotter. Who are the potential replacements? Because that would become the hugest decision that Poles will have ever had to make, because we believe you have the rosters and the foundation of a good team here. Who's going to lead it to a much better state than what it's been in many, many years? Like you said, probably back to Lovey.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, those to me are the two biggest pictures. If you have any other, I'll go back to you.
How about this? Just for a little less macro, a little more micro. We didn't say anything, so maybe just your final thoughts here. But trade deadline's coming up on Tuesday. What the heck should the Bears even think to do? Is standing pat the right thing? I mean, Nate Davis, Khalil Herbert, I hear some buzz there. What are your thoughts?
I mean, you didn't see either of them. Get rid of them. I don't give a fuck. Get rid of them. Get whatever you can for them. Draft picks, ham sandwiches. I don't care.
But any big swings? I mean, they brought in Montez Sweat last year, not to get him up that year, but to set him up for the future.
Right. I don't know. I mean, you hear the names like Myles Garrett. If you can get Trayvon Walker, maybe to put on opposite, but now you're putting all that money into the defensive line. I would rather get like Brandon Scherf from same team, Jacksonville, right? The offensive guard. But
what would that cost? Because I really think
he's
holding on to the draft capital you have is going to be important. What do you think it will cost?
Oh, I think he's getting up there in age, but he's, I think
32, I think.
A 5-6 time Pro Bowler. So, are you getting him for maybe 2-3 years max?
No. I don't know. What's it going to cost draft capital wise.
No. I'm saying I don't know what his contract situation is right now. So to me, probably like a conditional 4th. I don't know if it's worth sending that, and if he does well enough, you're probably giving up a 3rd.
I'm hoping they are not looking to deal Carolina's 2nd, which is a virtual.
No. You better not touch anything in the 1st or 2nd round.
This team right now, I don't think so. I'm hoping a kind of a quiet trade deadline. And if other things are pretty quiet that day, I think that's good too.
All right. I have 3 names that I threw out for Bear Goggles on. I'll just throw real quick. Evan Neal is a guy that I would consider out of the Giants. Look, he's a former 7th overall pick. He has not performed well enough in New York. They have benched him. He didn't even come in for relief really this year. So that's a guy, though, I would highly consider. And I know people are going to be like, oh, well, it's Alex Leatherwood all over again. No, Neal was a much better prospect than Alex Leatherwood was. Leatherwood went like 28th in his round or in his draft. Neal has way more length, way more size. That'd be a guy I would definitely consider right now, seeing how poor Larry Borum played. I called that. I said Larry Borum was going to be like shit. He's coming off an injury. I also just don't think he's a good offensive lineman. You can't count on him to be a starter. They're in trouble if he's going to be starting weeks. I don't know where we're at with Braxton Jones yet. That tells us how much Braxton Jones actually is important, right? As bad as he is at times. Another option is from Buffalo, but I don't know if they're going to get rid of him. If they still need defensive back help because you can't get Jaquan Brisker out there, you can't get Kyler Gordon back. You could look at Kaiir Elam.
I like Freddie Stewart. I like Freddie Stewart out there.
So there we go. I'm going to do those 2 names. I'm not even going to. The other one was Tracy Porter out of New Orleans, but guys that you could get for dirt cheap, 6th, 7th round picks, right?
Those are the guys. Their 1st and those 2 seconds.
I told you though that I had 2 guys that I had game balls for. Freddie Stewart was one of them. Look, he's a practice squad guy who came up. He performed well during the offseason when he was needed. We were hoping he would make the final roster. He didn't. They were able to get him back on the practice squad. He was activated this week just because of practice squad rules. And it paid off because he's the one that got the fumble.
He stripped it.
Jack shit with it, but he did his part, right?
He did his part.
The other guy
getting a game ball from you?
What was that?
Does Odunze get a game
ball? That was my other guy. Yes, that was my other guy. Those are my only 2.
He had sneaky good stats, but it didn't matter. That was the part that kind of bewildered me. But that was more of a collective team. Just like I said, anytime something good was happening, they found a way to shoot themselves in the foot.
He had a few first down conversions on 2nd and 3rd down that I felt were important. He did have the one drop.
Yes. That was a dime. That was a dime on the sideline. But the deep one that they did connect on, he really floated it to him. If he hits him with like a more direct throw, does he take it to the house? I don't know.
I think so, but he had already committed to the anticipation. I mean, he threw it before he was even like fully open.
I see.
Right.
So he just put it out there.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, like I'm going to take that over what we've seen over the last.
Deep balls have not looked anywhere near as good as that. So
no.
All right. So those were your 2 game balls?
Those are my 2 game balls. Do you have any to add?
No, because I said both of them right as you were.
Yeah, exactly. We're on the same page. We didn't even talk about it.
I was saying how Torrey Taylor can't be the team's MVP, and then he did a weird safety punt.
Yes.
Was that an onside or what was that? At first I thought he like hit the scoreboard or something.
Oh yeah.
But then everyone's looking at it like, really? The whole team is like, fair catch?
Yeah.
Weird. Very weird play. And that was right when my son was like, why do they even make it a punt? It's so dumb that they make it a punt. Yeah. And then Torrey Taylor clearly like, what am I doing out here?
He made it fun.
Pretty weird, but no, well.
To end the show, so like I think we're done. I think we talked about it enough. I am actually flying out. I have to get up at 3 a.m. I'm heading to Kansas City to watch a real football team play. This will be my first time ever going to a non-Bears game. And I'm going to watch the Kansas City Chiefs play the Tampa Bay banged up Buccaneers on Monday Night Football. I am wearing my Kyle Long jersey. I'm also going to wear red, and I'm going to support the Kansas City Chiefs. It's an AFC team. I feel like I can. I'm going to support the Matt Nagy situation over there. But I'm really interested to see how the game is played while I'm in person, and I can like focus on it way. Like I don't focus on other games as much as I do Bears games, and just see like, oh, this is how a real football team operates, right? Like, so I might come back with some notes for the midweek episode with Bob.
All right. Well, we'll need them. We'll need them, man. All right. Nice job, Rob.
Same. Bear down.
Bear down.
Claws up. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button.
Get close to that jersey. We're getting close. Let's get it.
Some comments. Do it all. Do it all.